Hi, welcome to section 6, OAuth. In this section, we're going to look at OAuth, which is a protocol for authentication and authorization. It lets you delegate responsibility for authentication to a third party, and we'll look at how you can delegate that responsibility to Facebook and Google. But there are hundreds of other companies out there that support OAuth via a similar process. The great thing about using OAuth is that you no longer have to worry about storing passwords, handling password resets, etc., etc. Both the providers we're considering here even support two-factor authentication, so you could skip building that feature yourself. It also saves your users lots of time when they first sign up for an account, as they don't need to set a password. In addition to handling authentication, OAuth also lets us request permission to act on our user's behalf and to read additional profile information about the user. For example, we can request permission to publish to Facebook on a user's behalf, or to see a list of their friends on Facebook. In the first video of this section, we'll cover Facebook login. We'll take a brief look at how OAuth 2 works in general. We'll then register our app with Facebook. And finally, we'll add code to our application to allow users to log in with Facebook. So first of all, how does OAuth work? Well, the user starts by initiating login by requesting a URL from our site. We then redirect the user to Facebook, including, along with that request, a client ID and a redirect URI. The client ID tells Facebook which application is requesting OAuth, and the redirect URI tells Facebook where to send the user once they've approved the login. We can optionally include a scope if we want the ability to perform additional actions on our user's behalf, or read more about the user than just their ID. Finally, we can also pass a string called state that will get passed back to us. It's a good idea to use this by setting it to a random string and then verifying that the correct random string is returned to us at the end, as this will prevent people spoofing login. The next step in the process is the user completing the authentication on the third-party site, in this case Facebook. This could involve them logging into Facebook if they're not already logged in, and at a minimum it will require them to approve this login on the first time they log into any given app. Once they've done that, Facebook then redirects the user back to our website and includes a code in the URL. Our app then makes a request directly to Facebook, passing the code and a client secret. If the client secret and code match and are valid, Facebook returns a document to us which contains the user's ID and an access token that we can use to make API calls on behalf of that user, providing we requested sufficient scope. OAuth 1 was a little bit more complicated than this, but is now rarely used. Most services have updated to the OAuth 2 flow. We're going to be using the @authentication Facebook module that supports this login flow, and it has a handy link here to the Facebook apps page that is where we'll go to configure application. So first step is to add a new app and create an app ID for it. We'll then need to add the Facebook login product. I'm going to skip the quick start here and dive straight into the settings. Now it's going to give me a warning there that says HTTPS is required for redirect URLs, but that shouldn't be the case in development. And indeed, actually, we don't need to set up the URL for development because localhost is accepted regardless of what's in that valid OAuth redirect URI's status there. So next up, we just need to follow through by adding this Facebook login to our application. And then actually we can copy a lot of the code from this example here, although some of it will need modifying, I'm sure. So I called the callback auth/Facebook. This example code is based on TypeScript, but we are using plain JavaScript. So we'll handle post to that URL and a get request to the URL. So the post is that initial request to initiate login. And when we get that request, we're going to redirect to the provider and we can store something in state if we want to, but in our example, I'm not going to put anything in that state value. Once they've completed login, Facebook will redirect them back to this callback path with a GET request. We'll then check for and handle the possibility that the user intentionally cancelled login. If that happened, we'll redirect them back to the home page. And then we'll complete the authentication. We get the state, we get a small amount of profile information, we get an access token and a refresh token. The only one of these we're going to use is the profile, and for now we'll just log out that profile so we can see what's going on. I've incorrectly put that in views and I meant to put it in routes. So I'm just going to move it across. And then I'm going to need a router instead of an app from Express. And just like all the other ones, I'm going to need to do an export default app at the bottom of this file. Line break in there so we can see what's going on. Okay. So the only other thing left to do was to add in that form that we saw here. I'm going to add that to, I guess, our login page, to the top of our login page, which is currently in this password reset view because we didn't rename it after we added passwordless authentication. So it's going to be a form with the corresponding action, a button to say login with Facebook, and then that callback path is the one that we used in here. So this is /auth/Facebook. And then the only other thing is we will need the CSRF token. So I'm just going to extract that from that same code from somewhere else where we've used the same thing, such as the bottom of the home page. Okay, let's give it a whirl and see what happens. Actually, no, we will need to first set the environment variables for Facebook login. So you'll see as part of this step, it says I need to set Facebook app ID and Facebook app secret. So let's pop those at the top. And these can be found under settings, I think basic. There we go. So this is the app ID and the app secret at the top of the page there. So the app ID and the app secret in there. Okay, now I think we're ready to give it a go. So I'm going to start by logging out. I'm going to hit the login/register button and then hit login with Facebook. It's going to complain that it can't post to auth/Facebook. That makes perfect sense because we didn't add the Facebook router to our routes. Just going to restart my server and then go back to the home page where I'm going to hit that login with Facebook button again. But this time it is going to send us to Facebook and it's going to say securing application apps will receive your name and profile picture, and I'm going to continue as Forbes. This should redirect me back to the app, and it has, and we can see there what's in that profile. So the most interesting bits are the ID. There's the display name and name there. If we requested the appropriate scope, we'd also get an email in here. I think there might be a note about that in here. So you can see what the available scopes are in Facebook's OAuth docs. And we get an image to use as the profile picture and so on. So what we're going to use is the provider plus the ID as the user identifier in our system. And if we had set up for display names in our system, we could use their display name. And if we had a location for profile pictures, we could pick one of these profile pictures. Okay, so all that remains is to change that res.json to match what happens when a user is successfully logged in via another means. Okay, so now that that's done, we should be able to successfully log in via this user, and then it should redirect us to the home page having logged us in. I'll restart the server, head back to that home page, and log in with Facebook. And you can see that that post came from Facebook user with this ID. So we can log in with Facebook and use Facebook to authenticate our users. And as you can see, we also get some profile information about the user.